Hello, everyone. My name is Don, the movie reviewer, and today we're going to be talking about a movie called Parasite.
제시카 외동딸 일리노이 시카고 거선배는 김치모 그는 이사촌. 제시카 쌤이라고 일리노이에서 오신 그 검은 상자를 저와 함께 열어보시겠어요, 어머니?
지금 진짜로 이상한 게 온 것 같아.
아버지, 계획이 뭐예요?
Now, there is a lot of praise going around for this movie. That's how I found out about it, because it has a 99% Rotten Tomatoes score. It has a high critic rating. It has a lot of praise right now. And there are a lot of advertisements that are praising this movie. And usually when that happens, sometimes the praise isn't real. It's just a bunch of people all hyped up for a movie, and your anticipation is so through the roof that when you see the movie, you wind up being disappointed. Now, is that the case with Parasite? Let's find out. This movie starts off with a poor family, and this poor family is in this house, or not in the house, but they're in an apartment, and they live on the ground level of this apartment. And there's this really funny moment at the beginning where they're trying to steal someone else's Wi-Fi, where the boy is on his phone, and then he's walking through the house at the very beginning trying to find a good Wi-Fi signal, and they find one in the bathroom. So this movie has a lot of comedy in it from the very beginning. So this kid who is tutoring this girl goes to the poor family's house, and he talks to the young man. He brings a rock with him to this family as a sign of good fortune. But then as the movie progresses, it kind of seems like this rock that was meant to bring good fortune is bringing a lot of misfortune, which we'll talk about later. The young man who is tutoring this girl for this rich family offers his poor friend to teach the girl and take his place. So at first the poor boy hesitates because he feels like he doesn't have any experience, but then his well-to-do friend is just like, hey, you can do this, just take over, and I don't want to bring any of my college friends around and all this stuff. So then the poor young man accepts this guy's offering, and so he meets the rich family, he meets the young girl of this rich family, and the family, the mother, from the very beginning, as soon as we see the mother is just out cold, laid out on the table. You can tell that this rich family is very wealthy, obviously, but they're dealing with a lot of heavy loads, and so they have other people take care of those loads for them. Like, they have the maid who came with their house, and the maid is taking care of stuff around the house, and she's been there with the previous owner, who was a painter. And then you have the driver who drives for the husband. And so the family, you can tell that they're constantly busy, because then you can see, like, from the very beginning, when the poor boy is taking a tour through the house, the maid is picking up arrows that the young boy, the little boy of the rich family, he was shooting arrows pretending to be an Indian. And so the kid's going crazy. So the kid has a good life, but then there's a scene where the mother and the boy are talking, and the mother, you can tell she's exhausted, while the maid is playing with the young boy, the son, in the background. And so usually I hear that's the case with people who have large amounts of money, is usually that they're so overwhelmed with their careers and work that they rarely have any time to spend with their children. So either the nanny is the one who's ultimately taking care of them all the time. So you could get I think, a good perspective of where each family was at from the beginning. Like, we saw the poor family and the way they lived, and then we saw the rich family and the way they lived. And it seemed that both families were dealing with stress. They were both dealing with stressors, like just little stresses of life. They were dealing with those everyday stressors in different ways, even though, they lived on opposite sides of the track. But it's a good introduction for the rich family. We get to see the mother and how she's handling everything. We get to see the boy, who's very funny. We get to meet the girl who the young man is going to be tutoring. But then where the story becomes really interesting is when this poor family, decides to sabotage the workers that are already working for the rich family. We have our first incident where the boy, the mother is all obsessed with his drawing, right? Like, the mother is like, okay, he has a lot of energy, so I put him in Boy Scouts, and now he's just shooting arrows all over the house. And he likes to draw pictures. And so the young boy of the poor family, he sees this and he hears the mother talking to him about it. So then he says, you know what? I know someone who can help your boy and really, help him express himself with his work, And so he lies to the mother of this family and saying that this person he knows is, really good at what they do, and they're in high demand, and I highly recommend him and all this stuff. And really, he's just trying to get a position for his sister, and it works. So then his sister, who knows nothing about art and drawings and painting, just goes in there and fibs her ass off to the mother, and watches what the boy does, and then convinces the mother to hire her. And there's this one really weird, funny moment where the young girl of the poor family talks to the mother of the rich family and says, "Oh, did anything ever happen to your son? When you guys first moved into this house?" And the mother, the rich mother, like she hesitates for a moment. So then they set up this mystery that we are going to learn later, which is interesting. So then the girl, the daughter of the poor family, gets a job because she convinces the mother that she knows all about art and art therapy and all this stuff. So she's going to tutor the son. And then, as she's being driven home by the rich family's driver, she sabotages him by taking off her panties and stuffing them under the passenger seat, where the father finds them. And then he has a discussion with his wife, and he's talking about, okay, how can we get rid of him? I can't believe he did this. Why doesn't he do this on his own time? And then so it shows a good, nice perspective of how, people try to let people go the easy way, So it's like, we know what's going on behind the scenes, but the people who are being fired don't know, because the family's like, okay, how are we going to work this out without making us look bad? How can we let them go? Let them go easy, So those little dynamics were really interesting. So then the father fires the driver, and then the family convinces the father to hire the rich family. The poor family convinces the rich family to hire their poor dad, and then so their poor dad gets hired on as a driver. And then so now by this point, the father, the brother, and the sister of the poor family are like way in there now. They're just working for this rich family, and the rich family's just being duped this whole time. And then there's the maid, who's been there before, these new owners were in place. She was there when the previous owner of this nice house was a painter or something like that. And so now they're figuring out a way to get rid of her. So there's this scene where they come together and they discover that, the maid is allergic to peaches. So then they come up with this really horrible scheme to sprinkle peach dust onto the maid so she can get sick. And then the father has this big plan, and he has this script down of what he's going to say to the father, the rich father and stuff. So they got this like down to a T, to a science. So they sprinkled the peach dust on the maid where she gets sick and she's like coughing, and the father like sneaks up on her where she doesn't know, and he takes a picture, sends it to the rich wife, or I think the rich husband, one of the two, I forgot, but he shows one of them the picture, and then he convinces her that, oh, I saw her in the hospital and I was just taking a selfie, but I saw her in the hospital, that must be her, and she's sick and she's got some sort of disease. I don't remember what it is, but he's like, she's got some sort of disease or some sickness or something. So this scares the rich mother. And then there's this whole setup where the daughter's in the house tutoring the boy. And then the father calls, I think, the daughter and says, oh, we're on our way back now. Now they'll sprinkle the maid with the peach dust. So the daughter sprinkles the maid with the peach dust. Maid starts coughing as soon as the poor husband and the rich wife come home with the groceries. And then so the rich wife is all scared, like, oh, I just got tangible evidence, and now the evidence, I'm witnessing the maid being sick in front of me. And then the father is funny, because then he takes like a hot sauce packet or ketchup or something, because the maid sneezed into a napkin, threw it in the trash. Then the poor father comes in with a packet of something that's red, and he opens the trash can and he sprinkles the red onto the napkin that the maid just used. And it's so funny, he pulls it out, shows it to the wife, like, look at this, like she's coughing up blood, so you gotta let her go. So then the rich mother decides to let the maid that came with the house go. All these years of no incidents, probably she's the best maid, because even the father says she was the best maid. They were sad to let her go, but then they let her go. And same thing with the driver. They were like, we had to come up with some excuse to not make us look bad and to let him off easily and all that stuff. So now that the maid is gone, now the mother of the poor family comes in, takes the maid's place. Now this poor family is just taking over this house. And then there's a point where the rich family decides to take their son on a birthday road trip to go camping. So the rich family leaves the house. Then there's this whole moment where the poor family just takes over this rich family's house. They're squatting there now. They're just drinking booze. They're eating food. They're living the good life. Now this movie takes a turn after all the stuff that was funny. It starts off with comedy, and now it turns into like a drama mystery kind of movie, because then the maid that got fired comes back, and she is on the intercom or the video monitor, and she's like, hey, I need to come in. I left something in the basement. And in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, the maid wants to get revenge. She's going to hurt this family or something, don't let her in. But the family lets the old maid into the house. And then I'm thinking, okay, maid's going to pull out a gun or something. But no, she goes to the house, and then she goes to this kitchen area or something, this back area. And then it's weird, because then she's trying to move this china cabinet. She's trying to push it, and then they move it out the way, and it reveals a hidden passageway. There's a hidden passageway in the foyer or in the kitchen or something, but they move the china cabinet. There's the trap door there or something, and then the maid goes down in there, and I'm thinking, okay, the maid's gonna kill herself or something. But then the poor mother goes down there into the passageway and then finds the maid talking to her husband, who's been living in this house since this rich family moved in. And at first I was like, okay, is the rich family holding this maid's husband hostage or something? But no, there's like the maid has had her husband living in this secret bunker ever since, I guess, the art guy lived in that house. And the husband, he has a sad story, because at first it's weird, and it's like, okay, he's been squatting there for years, and the maid is like, you need to take care of my husband, I'll give you whatever you want. And you feel bad for this maid, because this poor family came in and sabotaged the maid and got her fired, and then her husband's sick. And so it's like this poor family did something really shitty to someone who is less fortunate than them. Like, yeah, the poor family is, they're not fortunate, they don't have a good fortune, but then they sabotage someone else, causes them bad fortune, and then like dominoes, it's also affecting her husband, because she says that the money I was making off of my job, I was giving pieces of it, I was buying stuff for my husband. So then the maid is pleading with the poor mother, like, hey, feed my husband, all this stuff. But then the poor mother's like, I'm gonna call the police. And then all of a sudden, in this funny moment, the entire family just falls down the stairs over some stupidity, and then they're busted. And then the maid is like, she takes a picture of him. She's like, oh, I'm gonna press send. So it turns out it's like a dark comedy moment. It's like drama and comedy. And she's like, I'm gonna press send, so you better stay right there. So then the maid and her husband hold the poor family hostage. And it's so funny. Even the husband who's living under the house, and they explain it in a good way too, because it's like, they say, when this house was built back in the day, they used this as a bunker in case wars would happen or something like that. So it makes logical sense. At first I was like, this is odd, but then they explained it made sense. So I just went along with it. But then the husband, he even says, while he's looking at his phone, he's like, it's like holding a nuclear device in your hand. You press send and you can shatter someone's whole entire world or something like that. Like, people's lives are in their phones, and you can do a lot of damage to someone's life with your phone. So this is a good, nice, tense, funny moment. And then what else happens? Then there's this big scuffle, because I think the rich family, they cut their trip short. They're like, we're coming home in 8 minutes. So they're like, shit. I think before that though, the maid and her husband have a struggle with the family, and then someone gets hit on the head, and it's this big freak out moment. But then the rich family's like, we're coming home in 8 minutes. So then it's really tense. They're trying to clean up the mess that they made. They're trying to hide the old maid's body in the bunker area, along with her husband. And then the rich family comes back home, and then the poor mother makes the rich mother some food, and they're just hanging out. And then there's this really tense moment where the old maid is running, and she runs up the stairs, and it's very tense. And then the poor mom kicks the maid down the stairs. The maid hits her head on a wall, and I'm thinking she's dead at that point. And then the poor father grabs the maid, and then he ties the maid's husband to a pipe or something. But before that though, the husband who was living in that bunker is sending Morse code to the rich father, but the rich father doesn't notice it. But the guy says the son of the rich family is a Boy Scout, so he should know Morse code. And so he's trying to get out of there. But then, the poor family doesn't know anything about that, except for the son, which we'll learn later on. But so there's all this chaos happening. And then so the guy who's living in the bunker is tied to this pipe, and then the maid's got a concussion, and then the poor family just locks the maid and the husband down in there in the bunker, and then it's just going about business as usual. But then this movie takes another direction of emotion, because then once there's this whole situation where the poor family is trapped in the house because the rich family, their son wants to go camping out in the backyard, so they let him do that. And then a mother and the father are hanging out in the bedroom, where the poor family is right underneath the table. So it's tense. It's like they're gonna have to camp there all night. How are they gonna get out of there? And there's a funny moment where the rich mom and the rich father, they get some little sexual relation on there, get a little sexual right there, which is funny, and the family's underneath the table watching. So then after a while, the rich family, they fall asleep, and then there's this nice funny moment where the poor family tries to escape, but then the poor father is like stuck on the floor because the rich family woke up, because their son woke up, and now he's stuck there. And then if they just turn their head slightly to I think it was the left, they could spot him, but they didn't. So he's like laying there exposed, but they don't see him though. So it's really funny. But then the father, he escapes. They get out, they're running in the rain. It's this huge rainstorm. And they get back to their apartment that's, at the ground level, and it's flooded with water because the rainstorm. They didn't close the window won't close. So at first, you feel sympathy for this family, like, oh, they're living through tough times. Then they sabotage the maid and the driver. So it's like, I don't feel empathy or sympathy for them anymore. They're shitty people. But then you feel empathy for them again, because everything that they owned is now lost. And then they have to sleep in the gymnasium and on the floor. And then I know the rich husband's always mentioning, like, there's something about the smell with these people, like people who, you know, were on the subway and all this stuff. So it's like the husband is seeming like he's figuring it out, because then there's this other scene where the boy of the rich family smells the father, the poor father, and he smells the poor mom. He's like, those two, they smell the same. And then the dad's like, there's a smell going on. So it's like, are they going to be found out? And it's like, yeah, you know, that storm is like, you know, a revelation where it's like, yeah, the storm is coming, man. The shit is brewing now, because then even in that bunker area, the husband down there, you know, his wife, the maid lets him loose, and she's like, remember these names, remember the people who did this to me, remember the people who did this to us. So now it's going to turn into a revenge movie, because his husband, he's just furious now. So then the rich family, they're going to have a birthday party for their young son, and that's when everything's set in motion. And then so the girl of the rich family invites the boy of the poor family, because now they're starting to have a relationship now, and the boy apparently wants to use her to like get in good with the family and get money, whatever, something, be successful. So then since the girl likes him, she calls him up. He's like, okay, I'll come over. And then they're like, we need a driver, so they invite the father. And then, you know, they're like, okay, the maid is there 24/7, so the mother is going to be there, so the whole family's there now. So now things are set in motion. Birthday party's about to begin. The whole family's there. The guy in the basement is all revved up. And the boy of the poor family, he makes one fatal mistake. He goes down into the bunker with his fortune rock, which I think is bringing them a lot of misfortune, because the guy who brought it says this rock brings fortune, but this shit, you know, first was looking up, now shit just going downhill, you know, because the family, I don't know, they're just taking matters in their own hands, and they're probably doing it the wrong way. I don't know, we all make mistakes. But the boy goes down there with the rock, not knowing what's waiting for him. The guy who's been living down there attacks the young boy. Young boy tries to get away, and it's tense, and it's crazy too, because I thought the guy in the bunker was going to strangle the young boy, because he put this rope around him, or this string, and it was tied to this thing. There was like a bell, and he tried to stick him in between the pipes, but he got out and he ran up the stairs and was making this dinging sound as he was running up the stairs. So it was kind of funny. But then when he tried to run through the doorway, the thing got caught, and then he fell. And then he dropped his rock. And then so the guy who's been living in the bunker is all crazed, like, and he's grabbing the rock and he takes it, and then he hits the boy over the head. And I was like, oh, I thought the boy was dead, because then he hits him twice. And I love these kind of movies where they don't shy away from the violence, because they'll just show it to you. Like in most movies, you just see the aftermath, but in this, it's like he throws it and you see the rock like hit his head. It looked realistic. So then the guy goes batshit crazy. He grabs a butcher knife, and just everyone out there having a party and on the lawn, you know, in the backyard. And then he just comes out there and he's looking for the wife, and then he sees the daughter of the poor family, and he approaches her and he just stabs her in the chest, and she's gushing blood. Then the father comes out and attacks him, and then the poor mom comes out and attacks the guy who's messing with her husband, the guy who has the knife. There's all this chaos, and the poor girl's dying. And then the father of the rich family, you know, his son passes out, and so he's like, I need to worry about my son, get him to a hospital. He's like, fuck whatever else is going on and shit. So there's all this chaos. And then there's this one moment where you could say, okay, these rich people are maybe not as good as they think, because then the father, he's just concerned with his son. He doesn't care about the tutor that got stabbed. He doesn't care about this crazed person. He's like more focused on his son, which is understandable. But then there's like this moment where the crazed guy who's been living in the bunker gets stabbed and he's dying. And the rich guy approaches him, and then he just turns the guy over and makes this face like, I guess he smells, because he's talking about the smell or something. So he moves the guy and then grabs his keys, because his keys are underneath him, because the poor husband tried to throw the keys and then he missed and it fell, and the guy who went crazy fell on top of the keys. So then rich husband moves the keys, grabs them, and then goes away. And then the poor father is angry at the rich father about that. So then he grabs a knife and then he just stabs the rich father in the chest, and then he falls down and he's dead. So there's just like a lot going on in this movie, and I would say the ending to this movie is very sad, because then it's like there's, you know, the family gets tried, the daughter's dead, now there's only the mother and the son, and the father is just nowhere to be found. He's disappeared. He's a wanted man. And then it's revealed that he actually moved into that bunker that the other guy was living in, and he's living down there, and his son knows Morse code, so then he's sending Morse code to his son. Oh yeah, and I almost forgot before that, the whole thing about the rich boy, the little boy who's a good drawer, and what happened to him when he first moved into the house is that his mom claimed, or the boy claimed to his mom, that he saw a ghost. And this is the most terrifying thing I've seen in the movie. Like, we see the guy's eyes, and he's like this. He's like, you know, and it's funny too, because he thought he saw a ghost, or at least the family claims he saw a ghost, and the family doesn't believe him because they're all caught up in their own world, when really there's somebody in that house. So most likely that boy saw the guy who was living underneath that house, you know, and there's someone living in their house this whole time, and they don't even know, and their son saw them, but their son is too young to say what it really is, what he really saw. So I thought that was a nice little tie-in there. But yeah, it ends on a sad note where, you know, the father on the run, living in the house now, sending Morse code to his son. He don't even know if his son's alive. He's just, you know, living on hope. And then the daughter's dead, and, you know, the family, the rich family that live in the house, they moved out, and then, you know, just shit is broken now. Shit's all messed up. But then there's this nice little message at the end where the son, poor son's like, you know, I'm gonna go to school, I'm gonna go to a university, I'm gonna make something of myself, I'm gonna make money, and one day I'm gonna buy that house, and then one day you'll just be able to come out from underneath the house and walk around. We'll be in the yard, and we can just live happily ever after. And I thought the movie was gonna end right there, because they embrace each other and they hug, and I was like, okay, that's a sweet ending, but that's not realistic though. So then it transitions into the boy actually thinking about that, you know, the father actually getting out of there, but really no, the father stuck in that bunker in that house. Daughter's dead, mother and the son have a criminal record, you know, they got probation, you know, so all their dreams and aspirations just were too big, and it all went to shit, you know. So was it worth it? I don't know, but it was a hell of a roller coaster, this movie. Let me tell you, this movie was overall, my verdict for this movie is I love it. I love this movie. It was an emotional roller coaster. At the beginning, there was a lot of comedy that I enjoyed, and then there was a lot of drama in here, and then there's some creepy stuff, and then there's a lot of tension, and then there's this mystery, and there's this chaos, and it's just emotional roller coaster ride all over the place. I was engaged from the beginning. I was absorbed, sucked in all the way to the very end. Mwah, the music in this movie, mwah, the performances in this movie, mwah, the directing, the cinematography, everything in this movie coexists with each other perfectly, and it's just put together like such a beautiful puzzle. You know, it's just like, and there's so many different flavors in this movie. You know, there's adrenaline, there's excitement, the stuff puts you on the edge of your seat, you know, and the music plays a huge factor in that. The visuals play a huge factor in that. You know, the setting plays a huge factor in that. You know, there's lots of great elements in this movie. I love this movie. The story is engaging. It makes you think. You see these different perspectives from these different families, and each one of these families are trying to take care of their own. You have this poor family at the beginning who you feel empathy for, but then later on they do a lot of shitty things that makes you question them. And they get these people fired, these supposedly well-to-do good people, which we find out with the maid, and she's just trying to take care of her husband. And then we feel empathy for her, and then the maid ends up dying, and then the guy who lives in the bunker wants to get revenge for his wife, so that's understandable, you know. And then the rich family, you know, they're so caught up in their lives that, you know, they spend time with their families and they spend time with their son and their daughter, but then, you know, mostly the people they hire end up taking care of their kids. And so it's like, you know, I guess the message is, you know, yes, it's about class, you know, but it seems like it doesn't matter what class you are in, whether it be upper class, middle class, lower class, poor, we all are after the same thing. We all want to be successful. We all want a good roof over our head. We all want to support our families and make sure our kids don't have to starve and all of that stuff. But some of us just go after it in different ways. And so I think this movie can teach a lot of things, about that. But on top of that, like I said, music great, acting great, setting great, cinematography great, everything in this movie that coexists works together perfectly. Mwah, mwah, mwah. I love this movie, Parasite. I highly recommend it. I love this movie. What more can I say? That's all I have to say. Emotional roller coaster. So as always, thank you for watching, and I will talk to you next time.